Hi, welcome to video 2 of our fundamentals series. Today we're going to talk about Nitral repositories. As you start programming in Nitral, it's a good idea to understand how repositories work to keep your workspace or your workflow organized. So let's discuss what Nitral repositories are and what they are not. A Nitral repository is really two things. It's a root path that basically holds a list to the projects that you open, and it's a pointer to a folder on the hard drive where newly created projects are automatically placed. In that folder, there can also be global resources available to all the projects in that repository. Now, what it is not, Nitral is neither a source control repository nor a mechanism that limits access to information based on that Windows path. That's not its role, and it's important to know that. We'll discuss that more as we work through repositories in the app. So let's take a look and clarify these points. Okay, so let's take a look at Nitral here. This is a brand new installed version of Nitral. And if we take a look here, we can see under repo on the menu that there is a main repository. That's the repository that Nitral creates by default, because you have to have a repository to hold any projects. And if we look at options here, we'll see that Nitral creates that main repository in this default path of Nitral under your documents folder. And we just call it main. So there's a root path and then a repository name. The repository name shows up here. Then under the projects folder over here, we have a list of the projects in that repository, which right now we have none. So as we create or open new projects, they're going to be placed in this repository's list. Not necessarily in the folder on the hard drive, but definitely in the list of projects for this particular repository. Now, if we make a new project, it's going to go into the folder on the hard drive. But if we open a project, it'll stay wherever it is, but it will be added to this repository's list. So let's take a look. Let's start by opening a project. Open project, and it's already got us pointed to that folder, so let's pick a project here. We're going to pick project 1, and we'll call it that. And here we go. We have the project open, and if we look now in the project list, we have project 1 in our main repository. All right, that's pretty simple, straightforward. Let's go ahead and add another project here. So let's go File, New Project, blank. We'll start from scratch. Project 2. Okay, that looks great. We'll keep all that. Say OK. Now, if we go up here to projects, we have 2 projects in our project list. And we can easily switch between our projects by just selecting them. So this is great. You may never need to create another repository. You can just leave it on main and create all your projects right there in the main repository. But if you're developing documentation for your organization, you're likely going to need to create several repositories over time. So let's do that. Let's go to File, New Repository, and let's give it the name Scuba Projects. And we're going to leave this checked to create a new project. So it's going to look for and create, if it doesn't exist, a folder called Scuba Projects. And in there, we're going to create a new project. And then down here, we have these options for language files. So our reference language, we're going to leave as English, but we're going to add French because at some point, we're going to want to translate our document into French, but we're going to primarily create it in English. So we need both of these language files. So we're going to say OK. Folder does not exist. Create it now. Yes. And then here it's prompting us that this repository does not have lang files in it. Do we want to create them? And the answer is yes. Now it wants to create a project, so we're going to call it Scuba Manuals. We say OK. Now we have a Scuba Manuals project created. If we look here, we can see Scuba Manuals and the repo Scuba Projects. Okay, so we showed how to create a new repository. Now let's talk about removing a repository and opening a repository. So here in our repository list, we have main and Scuba Projects. Scuba Projects is currently selected. Let's just remove it from the list. Remove. So what that's done is just simply taken it out of this list, but the folder and the projects still exist on the hard drive. So if we wanted to open a repository, File, Open, Repository, we have the options now to point it at a folder, which we know the folder is Scuba Projects. And this gives us the choice here to open a project. If we deselect this, it will allow us to open the repository with nothing in it, and then we can add additional projects later. So we're going to leave that selected and say OK. It's going to take us right to that folder. Let's navigate. Let's pick Scuba Manuals. OK. Scuba Manuals. Okay. So now we have our repository added back in, and we're back on the Scuba Manuals project. And so now it's important to note that since we have two repositories, when we decide we want to create or open another project, it's important to first pick the repository where we want that thing to go. So if we want to open a project in main, we select main. If we want to open it in Scuba Projects, we select Scuba Projects. Now if we say File, New, Project, blank project from scratch, Project 1, OK. Now we can take a look here and see that under Scuba Projects, we now have two projects. And lastly, to keep our repositories clean, we may have projects in there that we don't want. So in this case, I created this junk project called Project 1. I'm going to remove that project, and it gives me two choices. I can permanently delete it by selecting delete, or I can keep it on the hard drive. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete it and just clear it out completely. So delete. Now I'm down to one project in my Scuba Projects repository, which is exactly what I want. So now when you're navigating Nitro, you'll have a better idea how to keep your repos and projects organized. I hope you found this information helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to let us know through our Discord server. You can find the link to that in the description box below. And thanks for watching.